you know that there are 7 things that men crave more than sex? Well, you learn something new every day, and I wanted to share these with you as soon as possible. So I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that a man truly craves is peace, not silence, but peace. When he can be calm around you in your presence, that means a lot to him. No shouting matches, no unnecessary complaining. The more you complain, the more the man is going to tune you out. So, especially if you are in a relationship, if you have good girlfriends, if you feel frustrated about something, you know, please utilize that. I vent to my girlfriends all the time. So, that is key. All right. Next one is men crave respect. So, this one is really, really important. Even when you are angry, it's the way that you talk to him that matters. Men love to be respected. Also, if you have to correct him on something, make sure you're doing that in a non demeaning way, and don't disgrace him in any way, shape, or form. A man can forgive many, 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 many things, but disrespect, he cannot forgive. So that's truly important. Next one is men crave appreciation. So basically, like, thank you so much for communicating with me. Thank you so much for, even if it's like he took your car in, thank you for taking my car in to getting it fixed. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Make sure you're noticing his efforts and just appreciate his efforts. He's doing something nice for you, maybe something that you didn't want to do. So we always want to make sure we're appreciating our man. So even if it's the small things, the little things are the biggest things that count. Men are really getting tired of being treated as an ATM. One of my guy friends, he said during his whole marriage that, they didn't really have love or intimacy. He's like, I was just there because I was a paycheck. And to me, that made me feel really sad. I was like, wow, that is so depressing. I want everybody to find love. So, we don't want to treat a man as an ATM. No bueno. All right. Next one is men crave emotional safety. And basically, he can talk to you without you throwing words back at him. That is really important. He wants to be able to talk to you. And, men do need that emotional safety. That's huge for them, because even in my dating process, a man once said, he's like, I want somebody that I can truly be vulnerable with, and she's not going to judge me. And I was like, wow. I was like, that is something I never heard before. We want him to feel safe opening us up to us. I feel like that is what builds our emotional connection together and brings us even closer. So to me, that's really huge. Men crave encouragement. So we want to be the cheerleader on the sideline, and men love that stuff. During my marriage, my ex used to play football, and I would go watch the games. I'd be on the sideline cheering them on. They love that stuff. So make sure you're encouraging them, always to be a better man. We don't always want to be nagging them, saying, I believe in you. That's really important. A guy that I dated, I don't think he believed in himself that much. And I was just like, you're a really smart guy. And, you have a lot to offer in the working world. And, you're a good problem solver, and, you're very nice. So that was like one of the things I always want to make sure that I'm doing, especially if I'm dating somebody, just be encouraging, even when they don't believe in themselves. All right. Next one is men crave consistency. Yes, men like consistency too. Oftentimes women can be inconsistent with men. So it goes both ways, just not one end of the spectrum. And what that means is, like, one day you can be loving, and then the next minute you're like a whole nother person, and they're like, who is this person? We want that steady energy, and that is what is going to build their trust. Trust wins, right? So make sure, and also trust builds obsession. So we really want to make sure, yes, not everybody is the same every day. One day we can be super happy, and then something happens, and then we're like we can be in a bad mood, and communication is key. We want to express like, hey, I'm just not feeling the best today, or I'm feeling a bit frustrated. So always make sure we're communicating. There's that word, communicating. So consistency, men do like that consistency. Last but not least, men crave soft femininity. So, not weakness, because they do want you to have a little bit of a backbone. They're not going to want to, always battle all of your fires. So, we do want to make sure that, you are soft, calm reactions. Men, one of the qualities that they do look for in a woman is somebody who is feminine, speaks with femininity. You're very soft, you're protective, you're nurturing, you're kind. So, knowing when to let things breathe, knowing when to bring things to their attention, always speaking to them in more of a calm demeanor or a soft tone. Men don't like that, like harshness. One thing I do want to tell you is that I had a conversation with my neighbor last summer, and we were kind of talking, and we were talking about the dating world today, and he was like, and he's 65, and he was like, you know what? And he's like, if I was out there dating in today's world, he's like, I wouldn't want a woman who said she was strong and independent. He's like, I want a woman who is kind, who is nurturing, who is feminine, not argumentative. He's like, if I wanted to date, somebody who was strong and independent, he was like, I would date a man. And that really like changed my whole perspective, because I feel like in today's modern world, women, we do want to be strong and independent, but we don't want to come off as too strong or independent. Otherwise, men are going to feel like they're not needed. So he really opened up my eyes to that. And I do appreciate him for that. I tell him all the time how much I appreciate him as my neighbor, because he does do a lot for us. But knowing what is different and knowing how to give it in a way that actually ends in secret obsession. So, we want the man to, overall be with us, and we want to build that trust, and we want to build that consistency, and the overall goal is to create that attachment. That is really, really important, because that's our overall goal, is to have a relationship and find our forever person, right? So, and that's just some of the things that men crave. They want peace, they want respect, they want safety, and they want consistency. I hope this video helped you today, just kind of understanding what men truly want from a woman. And I feel sometimes we have gotten away from that. We hear all about like how women should be treated, but I don't ever really hear too much about how men should be treated either. So I kind of want to get into that as well. All right. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. If you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, you can always email me at humortheheart@gmail.com. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. I really appreciate you guys watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.